All right, I'm recording. Welcome to Shays Spiritual Insights. So glad you all are here. Greg, can I talk you into using a different picture next time? I
Oh,
love
you
your
tired of that
picture.
one?
Oh yeah, I'd like something new, a new fresh look for Greg.
Okay.
And I'm so glad that you are here tonight, Marcy. So you're on the warm island of Molokai. Well, we're all here, although it's spring. It's kind of cold here. Hello, Paula. Welcome. Can you hear me? Fantastic. I'm so glad to hear it. I'm going to wait just another minute before we start. There's Dan and Cathy. Hello, hello. Good to have you here. Just so you know, I am working with the lighting I've discovered, and I've done some research. Lighting is really important, and we're going to have to work on that on our end here. I think we need better lighting. It's okay, it's good, but not what we would like. All right, I'm going to go ahead and start. Again, welcome to Shays Spiritual Insights. We're so glad you're here. As always, I go by, for those who are new and those who may watch this on YouTube later, I go by David or Jeff. David's my legal name. My first name is also my spiritual name. And Jeff is the name I grew up with, which is my middle name. So to avoid any confusion, if you hear like somebody call me David or Jeff, that's the reason why. All righty. Pat, you're there. Welcome. Can you hear me, Pat?
Yes, I can hear you very well. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Hello to you and everybody.
Yes, hello to everyone.
John's there too.
I am so glad. Hello, John, and welcome.
Hello.
Well, tonight I'd like to start with just a little bit of echoing what we talked about the last two times. The energies right now in the soul group of the United States and in the world is pretty hectic. I'm seeing energetic actions by the soul group, and then its unfoldment. And this is because, as we've talked about before, as these incoming energies raise everyone's frequencies, those who don't have a spiritual orientation or just a very good grounding can find themselves, their old grounding points disconnected as new ones get made, and they don't know what to do about it. And so they can act out in different ways. You can, different people in different ways. If strong family support always helps. A good spiritual centering always helps. And one of the things I'll share, and the guidance came in from my guides, to remind people that grounding exercise we use at the end of our monthly meditations, you can use that or something like that throughout the day, and it will really help you out, keeping you connected to your higher guidance and grounded. Because when our mind wanders, sometimes we move on to topics in our mind, or someone gets us onto something that's slightly discordant. And because we do have free will, we can bring it into ourselves. So it's always best, just maybe in some point during the day, just go ahead and do that grounding exercise, the bubble of light, connection to the divine, to the center of creation, and then the grounding to Mother Earth, the center of Mother Earth, and so on. Is a really good one to do. And we're going to be doing it during the spoon bending too. Just so you know, I want to share this because Deborah was doing the practice session with me with the spoon bending, and we wanted to see how to do it. And I think we're going to lean toward keeping it to the essentials so that we can learn what we need to know, the technique, and then move on. But Deborah was concerned that she may have a little problem bending it, and there she did. That's hers. Yes, I want everyone to know that anyone can do this. And of course, the first time it's a little more of a challenge sometimes, but not always. And then after you do it for a while, you can start doing things like this. And serving spoons too, but don't let people take them off the mess decks, okay? That was back in my Navy days. I used to sneak them off the mess decks, and I'd ask them, please don't do that. We can go buy them. They sell serving spoons, but they would bring them off and do that. Welcome, Franny. Can you hear me? Wonderful. That is fantastic. Well, that's about all I had to say tonight, was just that it's still hectic in the soul group. And what I've noticed is as just as we individually have life paths and a life plan, the soul group collectively has it. And right now, it's veering. I see if you can see my hands. I guess I'd have to do it this way. It's veering off, and then it goes one more into the light, one kind of moving for the soul group, kind of trudging through the swamp a little bit. And just know those are the energies people are going through because of what we talked about before, the grounding and such. And what it's so important for each of us is to be the light, to bring the light in, to do that. You can do it through meditation, but definitely do the grounding exercise or your own grounding exercise throughout the day. You're connecting to the higher guidance and grounding, and that will help keep us centered as well as be the light for others to help them. So that's all I have to say. And I can start with the first question. Does anyone want to jump in? Go ahead and unmute if you do, and we'll see what we can answer. Paula, looks like you're grabbing.
Yep. Thank you, Jeff, for having us again tonight. When you brought that up about the grounding session, I connect with my high self, Mother Gaia, and the divine on and off throughout the day, but I just realized I don't always carry it through and do the whole grounding thing. And I'm wondering if that is a detriment. I know it's a detriment, but I'm trying to think of how to pose it as a question for the group so that everyone can glean something from it.
What I'm getting from the universe and your inner self, it's best if you can do both a complete connecting and grounding exercise, because that keeps us kind of as one huge circuit from high to low, and it naturally allows whatever, because as we're releasing stuff throughout the day, especially for those on the spiritual journey, we're constantly, I say constantly, routinely releasing energetic attachments, emotional baggage. And if we have that good circuit throughout the day, it'll just get absorbed and transmuted into light by Mother Earth. And it also makes us better vessels of light. So has it been a problem for you? It's been there's been some situations that would have gone a little smoother had you had both the high and low connected, but it's not been a problem for you, just so you know.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Franny, are you still there? Okay, I lost Franny's video, but that's all right. Pat, do you have a question?
I do have a question, and it's actually a question that I already asked you privately, but one that I feel that will benefit for the whole group to hear, if not for themselves, for some people that are close to them. And the question is when will people be able to heal themselves? And do you have suggestions on how to approach these healings?
Yes, and what I'm getting from your high self and from the Divine Mother, and I think it's a wonderful idea, can you first explain your understanding of our conversation, and I will add on to it as guided. How do you understand it?
Mine won't be quite as articulate, but it's that, yes, this is absolutely the time for people to heal themselves. And in my Pat terms, go for it.
I would agree with that. Yes, absolutely. Yes. All right. Do you have anything more? And if not, I can add some to that.
I would like you to add, because, you know, other people may have a slightly different vent and need a little bit more answer than I did.
All right. This is the time, and I'm going to just step back a couple steps back. And we've talked about it. Most of you have heard me say it before, but we are truly in a spiritual renaissance. We are in a time of spiritual quickening, as June used to call it. I borrowed that term. I love that term because that is indeed what we are. What we can do today in a weekend used to take months and years in decades past and centuries past. Some things weren't even possible before. So what's happening with that is that it's really important, and boy, my higher guidance and the Divine Father definitely reminds me on a routine basis that we are all to stay connected. As we can use the meditation, or if we're otherwise really busy, do the quickie connecting and grounding exercise to stay connected, to allow ourselves to be ready for healing. And just to know that and it's important for us to meditate and connect with our high selves so that, and to do the grounding and the connecting so that we remain this nice circuit. So and when things are ready to be released, they can be released. And those inhibiting beliefs and inhibiting baggage that is there. And if we're holding on to it, acknowledge that and bless it and let it go. And that opens us up for healing. But this is the time for healing in accordance with our life plan. And with each of us, there's going to be things that we can do now that we're ready for, and other things that perhaps need to wait because of other learning that we are in the process of doing. I've been routinely reminded that when we choose to come into this life, certain things of our abilities are shut off. And it's not that we don't have them, but having those abilities for some of us will preclude our ability to focus on the thing we need to do. If we have certain abilities, it will distract us or otherwise keep us defocused on the thing that we came to do. So certain things get shut off, including, and I don't want to say healing, perhaps it's the timing for healing. I believe that we are all to be healed and we're all to have the vibrancy that both spiritually and physically that we are to have. But sometimes we choose challenges so that they teach us things. So I'm not trying to speak out of both sides of my mouth. What I'm trying to say is that yes, it is a time for healing. Yes, we are to stay connected and allow things to happen, but also recognize that there's other things on each of our unique spiritual life paths and life plan that may have it that things don't come as soon as they otherwise would if we didn't have that learning to do. And I think I just saw Lisa. Lisa, welcome. Hopefully she can hear us. So did I answer your question, Pat?
Yes, and I thank you very much, and I'm thanking you that you spoke of this for the group.
Well, you're welcome. And your conversation we had was more detailed because it was, as you know, very specific to you. But it certainly applies to everyone. And I've had my guides remind me from time to time, what is it Richard Bach said in Illusions? We teach best what we most need to learn. Sometimes I find, boy, I'm giving this advice out. And my guides say, you know, that thing you shared with somebody the other day, you should follow your own advice. And I was like, you know, you're right. So thank you for asking. Franny, do you have a question? Can you unmute? Go ahead and unmute.
Not yet. I'm concerning, but I can't put it a question yet.
You're breaking up a little bit. I didn't.
So if you could come back to me, that'd be great.
I will do so, yes.
Could you come back to me?
Yes.
I don't have a question yet.
Yes. All right. Thank you. Lisa, I'm just going in order of your windows on my screen if you want to know how I'm doing this. So do you have a question or comment? Either one or both?
Hi, Jeff. No, I don't have any questions.
All right. And one things that I do, I have had an awareness of that my old guide, he was my active guide for over 30 years. His name is William. And he's now kind of stepped back and others have taken his place because it's their role now to do things. And he's reminded me sometimes, I tend to like to go into detail and he kind of shared a characteristic with me. I think it was him as well as my master guide. I love to explore things. I'm like a spiritual physicist. I think lots of us are. I like to go into the details of it. Whereas when we're doing things for others, like doing sessions or Reiki or whatever, that's more of an engineering thing. That's more like an applied thing. That's a spiritual engineer kind of a thing, to put it in technical terms. And so one of the things I'm going to ask all of you is if when I answer your questions, if I've gone a little bit deeper than I need to, please let me know. And I'll keep things to higher level because we can always ask more detailed questions, but it's my nature to do that. So I'm acknowledging that characteristic I have up front so that I can better serve you by answering your questions more succinctly if that's what needs to be. So, all right. Dan / Cathy, even though it just says Dan on the screen there.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry.
All right, there you are. Hello, Dan and Cathy again.
And as a comment on your last little inquiry comment there, we love the way you go deep into these explanations. So we really enjoy that.
Well, you're welcome. And I just have to remember to keep it appropriate sometimes. My guides reminded me of that, that I sometimes go, let's say, another level deeper than I need to for the moment. And and you know what, we all have our characteristics and that's fine. But if I know that, then, and if I ask everyone to do it, you're not going to feel awkward in saying something. You're going to say, you know what, he asked me, so I'm going to tell him. So thank you. Do you have any questions or comments at all?
Yeah, this is, I don't know, it's uplifting to me because the question is, it might need some explanation. When we come out of a crystal bowl meditation, where we've provided, awesomeness for people, and me and Cathy look at each other and we're like, how do you thank enough? We just feel so deep, love deep in our souls. And we're like, how do you thank enough? How do you thank the divine enough? And I was just wondering, the question is, what should I do with this energy different? Because I don't feel I'm doing enough with it.
Well, I think you're going to be guided to both of you, individually and both together, of things that you can do to have an enhanced expression of your gratitude. And I'm really seeing that you're feeling the gratitude because of your connection. You're in the moment. You're centered in your high selves and the divine. You're really just these clear channels, and you have the sacred space there, and you can really feel it. And I think just be sincerely yourselves and share with the level of gratitude you had, and let that be sufficient. I think it looks like whether it be an inner thing or a conscious thing, you're going to have an ability, both of you, to have a greater expression of that. And just, I would say, if you can, in the moment, step outside yourself and watch. And you both can, and Cathy, you're really good at that. And look at that. And Dan, you can do that too. I mean, you both do that. And I think you'll be able to see, even the next time you do a bowl session with people, that a sound bath, that you'll be able to see the difference from before and then. It'll be more enhanced.
All right.
So I'm trying to keep my eye at the camera here, so it doesn't look like I'm always looking at the screen. I wish I had the camera in the middle of the screen, but there we are. So is there any other questions or comments? Did I answer your question?
Yeah. And even coming out of your guys' meditations, I feel the same way. Just this unbelievable amount of gratitude just flowing out of us, and so thank you for tonight too.
Well, you're welcome. And it's it's always a privilege. It's because, as many of you have heard, I've become to really keenly aware of it. Whenever we're doing a spiritual activity in service of others, while we're opening ourselves in service to others, or you can say, well, we're doing a session for someone else, our higher guidance is doing one on us, and it's just natural to feel that gratitude and that openness, and it's just your heart wide open, and to really feel the love and just, I don't know, heartfelt gratitude, as you say, but it goes beyond words. It's just, I don't know how we can put it in words. It's just so far beyond.
That's why I thought I would ask you. So you're good at putting things in words.
Well, thank you, but some things are, beyond words. I'm going to share a little Joseph Campbell thought here. He had a friend, his name was Heinrich Zimmer, and he is the one that was responsible, because he had passed, and Joseph Campbell was responsible to do his memoirs, to get some things published that didn't get published. And in doing so, it inspired Joseph Campbell to go over to Japan and China and do that whole entire exploration into Buddhism, much further than he had done before. And I mentioned this because Heinrich Zimmer said there's three things we talk about: You said the best things cannot be talked about because they're beyond words. They're just, there's no word can touch it, nothing, you know, nothing can encapsulate it. So that's the first thing. The second best things are misunderstood. And those things are art, poetry, those kinds of things that point at the things that go beyond words. And we get, people get, as he said, get stuck on the metaphor. They talk about the transcendent and we get stuck on the image. And then they said the third thing we talk about is like the weather, you know, what's happening today, those kinds of things. So I guess I thought I'd share that. Your question is quite apropos, and that was his answer to it. So
Awesome. Thank you, Jeff.
you're welcome.
And hi to everybody else. I didn't figure out how to unmute it before you started. And so we just wanted to say hi to everybody on this meeting.
They say hello. And Franny and Lisa say hello. They waved. All right. And Paula too. I'm sure Greg is waving too, but all he has is the picture there. So that's all right. I'm going to give him a hard time about this. So, all right. Lisa, I want to come back to you. Do you have anything to share or any questions before I move on to Greg? All right. Greg, do you have any comments, questions, anything at all?
Well, I've been trying to think all day about a intense question and didn't come up with anything, but I guess I do have a thought. Hopefully I can express it well enough. In trying to be aware of being spiritually open, or perhaps extending myself, I recognize there's a concern about vulnerability, and wondering if there's something you can say about how to keep ourselves from feeling vulnerable, or if it's just a misuse of words or thoughts or whatever. Anything you can offer.
All right, I'm going to answer that on two levels. On our higher spiritual level, our connection with our divine self. Again, meditate and you can use the grounding that we use or use your own. That keeps us connected to our higher guidance, our high self, the etheric realm, and the divine, which is, again, our shorthand for any aspect of God. And then, of course, grounded to Mother Earth, which by extension connects us to the universe and greater creation. That keeps our circuit from high to low flowing and allows things of anything that comes up on the personal level to be released and transmuted by Mother Earth. Now, specifically, your question has an implied personal side to it. You, as we have discussed in phone calls, you are in the process of this expanded morphology, as many people are right now, extending into not only your extended aspects of yourself, but you're also in the process of moving to your next chapter, your next phase. And part of that is there's all this stuff that you've had in the past that's the proverbial closet, stuffed with stuff that just, when you open the door, it's so filled with stuff, it can't fall out. Although it's for a time for it to fall out. And what's happening is you're having interactions, these things are coming up. Some of them are being just released and you don't even know they're there. Other ones are part of you is holding on to it. Part of your low self is holding on to it, and it's getting processed through your energetic field, and you're feeling that vulnerability. Certain people and situations are spawning it for you, and it's actually a good thing for you. So I'd say just be aware of it, acknowledge it, bless it, keep your connection, and know that reflects states of being that I say are in the past, but they're passing. If they haven't already passed, they are basically, you've outgrown them. And just acknowledge them and bless them and let them go.
Okay, that confirms with my reaction was to think there may be a feeling of vulnerability there, but it's not real in some regard. Don't get stuck on that feeling. Just let it go.
Yeah, let it go. And you're right. And I want to say for you, that's the exact word I would use. It's not real for you. It's part of it's like referring to some old pictures of us when we were an adolescent. We're no longer an adolescent. That's how we used to be. And that was a thing that we were at once, but that's not who we are now. These feelings that you had, you're in the process of letting them go appropriately and at the appropriate speed to allow the because as you're letting go of things, new connections are being made. And then of course, anytime that process is happening, we're constantly rebalancing, and it's keeping you balanced so that you can continue navigating and growing and unfolding in your life. And you're in a big period of it right now, in a different way
great.
than you have been in the past. This is that next phase, I don't even want to say next chapter, it's beyond a chapter. It's like it's an entire phase, a whole group of chapters of lifetimes and learning associated with them. And as with many of us, and I've shared this with others here as well, many people right now are wrapping it up in this lifetime. And whatever it means for that, each person is different. But we're wrapping it up, putting that stuff in a bow and moving on. And part of this transition for us, because some of these patterns have been so ingrained with the low self, the shift can be tumultuous, emotionally, energetically, and then it can reflect into our outer lives. Events, all of a sudden, it's like, what is going on? Why are things happening, or why are things not happening? We can ask ourselves. And this is part of the reason, and I will tell you, that's part of the reason for everybody on this screen, everybody here. Each of you in a different way. Some of you right in the mix of things, and I won't name that is, but you probably know if it's you, you know it's you. And it's just to bless it, move on, and do what we have to do to continue to navigate earthly life as this process happens. I used to know a guy who was a standard Christian, and people would ask, how is it you are able to handle all these events in his life? And he had all kinds of family stuff going on, and he was in the Navy at the time, and he had a pretty stressful job, but his spiritual life was really important to him. And he says, well, all the stuff's happening, I just hold on to what I know. So he says, I do what I know until I know what to do. So you do regular things, earthly things in our regular life, while we're growing into the next phase of our spiritual stuff. Because as anyone who knows Anthony Robbins, he's an inspirational speaker, incredible guy. He says he had a series that used to be called Power Talk. It was back in the 80s, and it was really inspirational. It was cassettes back then. Anyway, he'd say, when you're first starting a journey, any kind of a journey in transition, you know where you want to go, so you leave the old behind. It feels great. Hey, things are happening, and it's wonderful. You can see the destination, and it's great. And then as we move along, we're neither where we were nor where we are going. He calls the middle no man's land. And kind of, for many of you, you're kind of in the flux of you're no longer where you were, and you're not quite completely as much as you want to be where you need to be and where you are going. So we're kind of in the middle, and that's what he called no man's land. And that's why that old saying, do what you know until you know what to do. Do practical things to supplement our spiritual quest to keep our life unfolding in a regular manner. And then as things start happening, we can just let the old patterns go, the earthly patterns, and move into the new thing. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And it certainly feels like a new journey, a new exploration.
It is for you. Absolutely. You are really moving into it in a new way that I guess, yeah, your high self says, I can tell you. You really had set this as part of your journey in this life. You've had a lot of new things through many lifetimes, but you've kind of had some old patterns that have stuck with you, just as many of us have. We have things that kind of stick with us. Those ones that have been with us for any length of time, it's like an energetic habituation. It's just the familiar, and there's all kinds of anchoring points in our low self, in our different octaves, lower octaves of our being, that kind of get anchored there. And now, finally, I say finally, and that's kind of your inner self, that's actually your words that I got from your inner self. Finally, we're moving on in the way that you know you can. And I must say, from what they're letting me see, is I'm most impressed that you're just really allowing it to flow so much more smoothly than it has been for you earlier in this life and then in previous lives. You've really, and your higher guidance is very pleased with you as well. They want you to know that.
Well, that's great to hear. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Marcy, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
I can, and I want you to know, probably everyone here, I don't know, I can really speak for them, but I'm sure they're all envious that you're sitting there in Hawaii. Well, I'm here on a cold day. It's 50 degrees, but it feels like it's 35 where I'm at because of the humidity. So anyway.
It's funny. It's funny that you say that, because I almost sent you a little video of the beach, and then I thought of the word envy, and I thought we're all exactly where we need to be. Why bother someone with a different energy when they're exactly where they're needed to be? So that's perfect.
Yeah.
So Jeff, right now I want to
go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Oh, there's so much energy flowing through right now, and I guess it's releasing. But whenever I'm on your email or on your blog, that energy just really pours through. So it's awesome. It's just awesome.
Thank you for sharing that. But you know, a lot of us, I think most of us know this, Hawaii is still part of the creative energies. In fact, it's the word where the word, obviously, Elohim for the beings came from. That's where the word aloha came from. And it's, anyway, but the creative energies are flooding into Hawaii. And one of the things I loved about it is you have these creative earth energies augmenting the spiritual energies coming in. It's just such an exquisite experience. I had 4 years of bliss living on Hawaii. I don't know that it would be the same if I went back, but that's why I'm kind of I say envious, but I'm certainly think you're so blessed being there. You're where you need to be, and what a place to be. It's awesome.
It is. It totally is. And I would ask you two things. For me, always, if you see any blocks, any blind spots. But more important, Doug has had a real rough week, just flat out with high fever and a lot going on in his brain. And, you know, from my perspective, it's upgrade. But do you see anything or have anything that you could share with him? He's right here in the other room. So.
Yes, I can. I'm going to answer your first question first. I'm not going to call it a blind spot. You, and we talked about this before you left, you had a specific, and let's say the you, that's your high self and your and you listening to your inner voice, that it was time for you to go to Molokai for a while to do some spiritual growth, that it would happen elsewhere, but it's going to happen so much faster there. So because that spiritual growth is happening, you have some stuff coming up, and a pretty significant one. I want you to be aware of it, and your high self wants you to be aware of it. So, and just our talking about it's going to help you connect and help facilitate it releasing. So if any of it gets processed through your energy field, you don't have to wonder what it is. That's what it is, and it's part of what needs to be released in the upcoming short periods for this next wave of energy and connection that your being is making, and that's coming into the earth as well. It corresponds, your personal journey corresponds to the energies coming into the earth, and of course to our soul group, which of course applies to all of us. And then
Is that this next month that we're in?
Yep.
Okay.
And the next two, I say we got a little bit of a break, a little less than a week for you at least. It's going to come in waves, not consistently evenly throughout the whole earth. It's going to come in the way that is right for it, obviously. But within the next few days, you're going to notice it ramp up. And yes, and then over the next month's a good approximation. And there's going to have little pieces and parts in it as you do it. So just know, you know how those your patterns, when they happen, you just say, oh, that's what this is, and then you'll be fine.
Okay.
And I'm going to echo, it's a couple of things with him. One of them, I'd rather just talk personally with you individually, but you're right, it is part of an upgrade. And sometimes this happens, and I'm going to share, this isn't an exact parallel, but oftentimes for young people in native tribes, let's see, you know, the Aborigines or whatever, when a child is destined to become the next shaman, let's say, what happens is at some point in their life, they can become either very physically or possibly mentally or both ill from the perspective from the outer people. But what this is the universe, because the person may not have been ready for it, or they, for whatever reason, they're holding on to something, or it's time, and this is the way that the best approach the universe and their life plan has for them. They suddenly get this sickness, and it causes them to fall. The old parts of the baggage and psyche and whatever fall away, and the new connections are made, and they move in. And of course, the tribal shaman will see this and know precisely what it is, and they'll tell the parents, "Oh yes, 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 I will help and heal this thing." But actually, what they're doing is facilitating these energies coming in, so that child, in this case, in my example, can move into it. Similarly, now that's a big, huge example, but in his own way, this is a process that, you're right, it is what did you call it?
Upgrade.
Yeah, that's a good word. It's a
Upgrade.
transition. Yeah. And it's one that is being brought by the universe to remind him that this is what he's about. And there's probably, I don't know if and I'm getting that it is, but they're keeping it veiled from my awareness. So it's not for me to talk about or know about. But this is a reminder for him that there's some things that his inner self is aware that he probably should be focusing on, or perhaps letting go, but has put it to the side for a time being because he's doing other things. And this is a reminder to quote Covey, keep the main thing the main thing. So yes, it's an upgrade, but it's also the corollary to it, which is that it's time for this, and it's a little rougher than it has to be because he's been kind of, I'm going to use the word diverted in some ways, and I'm not sure what those are.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
All right. Yeah, I think so.
Think about it.
I
We
think
can
so.
talk individually on some other stuff, because there's some things that are more of a personal nature that we can talk about.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I'm so glad the telephone dial-in worked. This is the first time we've done it. So I always configure the settings every session for this, every one of these Zoom sessions to do this, but this is the first time we've had it happen. So I'm glad it worked like flawlessly. It looks like it went smoothly for you.
Yeah, like a charm. It's awesome.
Yes.
And I've got my spoons right here. I've been holding them part of the time. I'm getting them ready for tomorrow.
Well, you stepped in, and I can't show you because obviously you are on the phone, but I'm going to show it to you in case you watch this video later. This is what Deborah did. When we did the practice Zoom session to make sure that everything was going to work right, I said, yes, you can do this. Of course you can do this. And there she is. I said, just do the simple method first, and then we can move on from there. So, and I wanted to share one more thing that Doug's high self brought to my attention after I quit talking. I want to make this sound like it's a negative thing for him. That's not how I mean it. I just mean in our lives, we get focused, life events happen and we're doing the things we're doing. And we know we have these other things that are important, and we'll get to them. And this is the universe's way. And I would say, yeah, it's an upgrade. It's definitely that. But it's also a way to remind him to put greater attention on these other areas. And I think these are things perhaps of his own inner knowing. Some of it you may know, and it may be something he has to ponder. But I don't mean it to come across in any negative way at all. It's just how life sometimes happens, and sometimes our guides in the universe give us little nudges. Hey, nudge, nudge. Time to get back on to this other thing. So.
Great. Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. And I'm so glad you are here. Glad everyone's here.
Thank you.
All right. I've gone through everyone on the screen at this point. Is there any or questions or comments? I always love to hear comments and thoughts and what people are doing and what's happening in your spiritual lives. Oh, Franny, please.
I've got a couple of questions for you. I didn't originally sign up for the spoon bending because there's something about it that invokes a lot of fear in me, and it seems beyond my conscious mind. And then I got your reminder, and I was like, well, I'll just sign up and I'll figure it out later. But there's some part of me that feels like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this, and I don't know. So there's something about the power of it that is scaring me, I think.
And it has to do with your past, and specifically a past life. See, what as it comes to you, I think you know. I can see you do know. I don't know how close it is to the conscious level. Yeah, because it looks like it's on the cusp there. You've
I have
had
no-
in past, because of your abilities that just naturally come through, and so in past lives you've had, I don't want to call it persecution, although I would go into that direction where you have been, your abilities have been portrayed, and these kinds of abilities have been portrayed in a negative light. My friend Kay has been persecuted in the past for being, she was considered a witch, and at the time. And something similar like that has happened with you. And I think it's for you to explore. These energies, like anything, they're spiritual energies that we use. The spoons, as I mentioned, spoon bending in my mind is about everything except bending spoons. The spoon bending proves to us that it works and it has a physical effect, but it's really about connecting with our higher guidance and doing it in aligning our energies in a way that become like laser. And it really is. It's like coherent light, and it becomes incredibly powerful. And once you start doing this, it then permeates all areas of our lives, and it's going to open up some stuff that for you specifically, because as this channel becomes, our chakras are, even when we're bringing things through, they're not always, let's say all the valves are not set the same. And when we do this, that's what we're going to do. We're going to have this as one nice straight pipe, like there's no valves at all. And that allows energies to flow down. And I'm going to be talking about this tomorrow. It also allows our baggage to come up. That stuff, those baggages, beliefs, fears, those things we're trying to avoid. You've got that. You've got some that your low self has been fearful about. But fear not, the light will get it. We'll take care of it tomorrow. That it'll come up. It'll process in its own way. But that's what it has to do with, is some low self stuff from past lives that have it. It was not a positive experience for you. In fact, it was a negative experience, and affected you emotionally, and quite. You felt quite dejected in that life. I'm going to use that word. It's a milder word. And because it was that experience, your low self, that baggage specifically, those energetic attachments and the beliefs and the experiences associated with them, bring those feelings into you. That's what you're sensing. Does that make sense?
It does. And I don't know if this is related or not, but it certainly feels like it's got that resonance of baggage that's ready to be cleared, or things that are kind of on the edge of what I'm aware of. I had a dream last weekend. I used to be a river guide, and so sometimes I'll have like one of my most common stress dreams is that I'm getting ready to go on a river trip, and I may not have the things I need. I haven't had a chance to pack. I don't have my wetsuit. I may not know where my life jacket is, or things like that. Or, one dream was I got to the river and there's not enough air in my raft, and the trip is leaving and I have to pump up my boat to get it to where it'll float. So river dreams are kind of common for me. And the one I had last weekend was I arrived at my the old warehouse where I used to work, preparing for a trip, and the water was really high and really muddy. And I was supposed to be going on a 5 or 6 day trip, and there was an experienced guide there, and the owner was not there. The owner's the one that would have done the scheduling for me and for everybody else. And I hadn't been to the warehouse, and I hadn't worked at it as a guide in a number of years, yet I was supposed to be the trip leader on this trip. And I began to have this overwhelming feeling of helplessness. The water was high, the water was muddy. And I asked this experienced guide, where am I supposed to put in? And he didn't give me an answer, but he did say, definitely don't go there, because that's too dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And in my mind, I thought, well, it's all too dangerous, And so I began to wake up, and with my lucid dreaming, I decided that it had the feel of chaos. It had the feeling of me being out of control. And my intention was simply to go back and say, I'm in charge of myself, and I'm not going to lead this trip. It doesn't feel safe to me. I'm not going to do that. There's kids on it. I don't even know where we're supposed to put in. I haven't seen the river at this level, and I haven't led a trip in years. So I need to walk away. I need to kind of detach and just be clear of the situation without anything else. And then, so that was kind of a curious dream for me. And then on Monday, when I got to work, kind of a difficult situation came up that day. And I had some of those feelings of powerlessness, like I was watching.
Yeah.
Say that again.
Vulnerability, yeah.
Yeah, vulnerability. But I have a busy week and I don't multitask well. So I kind of have to focus on one thing at a time. And that kind of served me well this week because I didn't have much time to worry about this other thing. And I said my prayers, and my prayers were that, I spent time in prayer, meditation, and my prayer was that, let this be resolved for the highest good of all involved. And I said my prayers, and I feel like there's stuff that I need to learn that's kind of over here, not in full view for me. But in any event, I wanted to kind of throw out there, can you say more about the dream, and does it relate to the work situation? And I don't know.
Yes, and more. I was going to mention that to you. And it's not a negative thing. It's just for you to be aware of. I'm a firm believer, to be, forewarning is foreknowledge, and dreams are a vehicle definitely for many of us for that. And definitely for you. What's happening, remember we talked about the same thing that's causing you the trepidation about the spoon bending is the very same thing that precipitated this dream. You have a bunch of stuff, and I see it, this is how I see them. I see this bundle of energetic baggage. It's just, these are things that happened to us in the past, in this life and past life events, and it can be threaded through many levels. So we get rid of one level and the next one comes up. But these things, as the energies come into it, because you are so sensitive, they're muddying the waters. You don't have the clarity. You can't see the bottom. You don't know what to do. And when you said you said it for the highest good, boy, did that really help it. And you're just to be aware and what you do very well is connect to your high self, your higher guidance. Be aware of this stuff and let it pass. It's actually in the process of being released. A lot of it's going to just fall away, especially since we're talking about it. Just talking about it helps. It's like a double, most of us are aware of surveys and studies. One of the reasons why they do double blind studies is because the minute the participant knows that they are being studied or looked at, immediately whatever methodology they're using doesn't work anymore. The guy who invented the WebBot, if anyone's familiar with that, that's that piece of software that goes out and looks at collectively looks at the words being used out collectively throughout the entire internet. And he can predict things that are going to happen. The tsunami that happened in Thailand all 10, 12 years ago, that WebBot predicted it because people in their subconscious are aware of it. So you're just as you said, you're on the verge of awareness of these things coming up. And these are things that affect your ability to do interactions, to see clearly in your own being. It kind of muddies the water for you for your own interaction. Does that make sense? And so all you're to do is what you've been doing, which is reaffirm your higher guidance, give it to the divine for the highest good in the situation, and to let this stuff go. And it's time for it to go for you. It's, as we've talked about in other phases with you in the past, you're in another one. And this one, and it's going to permeate your life, not only your regular life, but all these spiritual, energetic connections you have within your being that allow you to employ what you do in your work, your spiritual skills, your interpersonal skills, your communication. So as it's coming up, if you weren't aware of it, it could make it blur things for you. You don't know what to do. It feels like it's dangerous because you're unsure, and it opens you up to the vulnerabilities associated with those events of the past. Because in the past you've had things happen just because at the time you did not have the awareness. I'm speaking of past lives, where you didn't have the awareness of how to handle it, and the event didn't turn out well. And then that, of course, gets encoded into our soul memory, and we bring that forward until we get to the point where you are now, where you have the connection to your high self and divine that can guide you, and just rather than getting at what I call negative cycle attachment, where we see the thing come up and all of a sudden we focus on it. It's like getting focused on some unfortunate event rather than focusing on the solution to the event, which is the solution in your case is your higher connection. So my long answer to your short question is do what you've been doing, connect to your higher guidance, give it to the divine, and know the answers are going to come, and that this stuff is, as it's coming up, it's going to dissipate. And it's going to dissipate even faster now that we've talked about it.
Wow.
That is what, so yes, I'm glad the
Thank
guide
you.
dreams, that seems quite appropriate for you. And the river, of
Yeah.
course, the spiritual waters, that's absolutely appropriate. Did I answer
Thank
your
you.
question?
Yes, yes, yes. That's very helpful. Yeah, very, very helpful. Yeah.
Any other questions or
Very
comments? Any thoughts? Okay. Yeah, you're really going through, and I think we've, as everyone on the screen here at various points we've talked about, all of you are, in one way or another, this is a culminating life. I want to call it that way. It's one where you're wrapping things up, putting them in a bow. You finished this entire phase of other lives. It had a lot of commonality in it. And just as the soul group now with this time of, we're in a spiritual awakening, I call it, Renaissance, the French word Renaissance, which, the awakening. As we're moving into this next level, into the next dimension, into the new earth energies, we are shifting there. We're unanchoring here to these old patterns that we've had forever and moving to the new ones. And each of us is figuring out what we're going to do, the things that we're going to wrap up in this life, some of what we're going to do in between lives with the training that we do there, and which lives we want to do next time, if we're going to do any at all, how we're going to do it. And so each of us, as the unfoldment is happening in our lives, we're choosing at the higher level, we're choosing how we're going to just wrap this up in a bow, what we're going to leave for later, what we're going to wrap up now. Sometimes as we go through our life, we think we're going to do it this way, and all of a sudden, because of other learning we've done, all of a sudden now we're ready for this other thing, and we shift to that life segment path, and that path segment of our life, and we do that and do it. But in any of this, because all of you, in fact, I can say this true with all of you on the screen here, you're all doing some big stuff in this life. You are really wrapping up old things and moving into new things. And and I'll use you, Franny, you're just connecting with the divine, handing it over to the divine for the highest good, acknowledge, and just letting it flow, letting it all go is the best route, because that'll keep it smoother. But for all of you, this is big stuff, and I don't want to put it in negative light, but it's tumultuous. It's a big thing what everyone's going through, but it's an awesome thing. It's wonderful. You have waited lifetimes, all of you, to be where you are right now. You all are at a point, I'm checking all your high selves to make sure I'm not misspeaking. Even for a couple of you where it's particularly in a rough patch right now, this point in your life is the opportunity to continue moving on, and to do it the hard, and to do the as they call it in the Life and Teachings of the Masters of the Far East, in that series, for those who have read it, they called it doing the work. Sometimes it's challenging, sometimes it's hard, but once we do it, it sets all the foundation for everything we do thereafter, and it accelerates us on our spiritual path. And all of you are on an accelerated spiritual path, every last one of you. So more so than the mass of the population, who right now is vastly struggling. So sorry, I went on a digression there. I hope it was helpful.
Absolutely.
All right. Anyone else have something to share or any thoughts, please? Paula.
Yeah, I left the house early this morning, realized I didn't get signed up for spoon bending. And now I've got 2 crazy dogs I'm babysitting, and I'm just wondering, is that energy that would be in the house good or not as good for me to still try and get into spoon bending for tomorrow, because they're just crazy energetic dogs.
I'm seeing that with you. It will be a bit of a distraction, but here's my thought. And you have to see what you're guided to do. And that's my philosophy on all of this. If we're called to do something, do it. You're going to work tomorrow. As we learn spoon bending, the first time we do it, it's usually a little bit of, and I will be talking about this tomorrow, it'll be a little bit mechanical, because you're learning the technique. And then later it's like riding a bicycle. You don't have to think about riding the bicycle. You just hop on and you go do it. So although the energies are a bit, I will agree with you, hectic, little chaos there with those, because they are just rambunctious, aren't they?
Yes.
Boy, they are something else. Those energies will have some effect, but you will be able to learn the technique, and then you can watch the video later, so long as their noise doesn't affect our ability to have for everyone else in the group. That would be the only thought. Just mute keep it muted.
Very good. All right. I might talk to you a little bit later on and see if it's too late to get signed up, because I know I missed it.
Go ahead and sign up. Just go out to the thing and sign up on it. That's fine. That'll be fine.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome, and I'll send you the email as well.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Lisa, do you have anything? I see you just moved your camera. Any thoughts? Anything to share? I always love to hear, because you always have interesting things to talk about.
Well, I'm probably one of those people that is in that rough patch right now.
Yes, and I didn't want to say your name, but yes, and trust me, I'm keenly aware of that for you. Yes.
This week was, I'd say, better than last week. It was pretty intense last week, just a lot of emotional stuff. And then I started to have a realization that I'm also picking up the mass consciousness stuff too, on top of what I am experiencing. And it's always frustrating because I forget, probably most of what I'm feeling isn't even me or my stuff.
Correct.
So, yeah, so that was, I think once I kind of had that realization, then stuff kind of lightened up. But, there's still stuff there. There's a lot of...
It's all right. Motorcycle or something.
Sorry about that. Of course, sorry what I'm talking. What was I saying?
That wasn't accidental, right?
Yeah, I know.
I mean, what happened there? That was it was kind of an outwardly manifestation for you. But anyway, I have your high self actually has something to share if you want me to share it. And I don't think it's too personal, otherwise I wouldn't share it at all.
Sure.
If you want me to, or we can talk about it privately, that's fine as well.
No, I'm pretty transparent.
Yeah. Your high self told me about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, somewhere in there, part of what you're going through right now with your situation in your life has to do with you use, as you said, you're picking up on the mass consciousness, and I want to call that I call it these. It's kind of a not quite accurate name, but I call it negative cycle attachments. When we focus on discordancy or lack, we bring that into our lives, and we can do it tacitly, where we don't even realize we're doing it, or sometimes it's part of our, our subconscious belief system or baggage going on, and you're to become aware of that. And boy, I just had it a second ago. I wish I would have kept it. I'm going to get it back. Your high self said, boy, you're really to focus on the abundance of it, the energy that's coming in for you, and to let go of some of that pattern. And those patterns, and one of the reasons why you're holding on to it has to do, like with all of us, habituations or energetic habits of the past, focuses of the past that you're in the process of and have been letting go. And it's part of what you've asked for. And the universe has given it to you. But sometimes, and I'll speak for myself, I ask for something and I think, oh, this is a little molehill. And then I find out that the thing that I just signed up for was a little bigger than I thought it was. But now that I'm in it, I guess I have to do it. And so you're in it and you're doing it. And just to be aware of that. And as you are, it's opening you up, and it's already happening. I don't know if you're seeing it. I don't know if it's showing up in your life yet, manifesting, but it's already beginning to happen into your life yet. Not yet, but it looks like it's waiting for you to do that. And as you said, when you said you're focused on the mass consciousness, I got that was emblematic of holding on to these things that are ready to be let go of. And it's, as like anything for any of us, what's easy for one person, like it can be more challenging for the other, because each of us is a unique human being with our own unique vulnerabilities and our unique strengths. And this is one of those ones that's been a vulnerability for you in the past of holding on to things in past lives, and perhaps even in this life, that have caused you to be on the receiving end of that which you did not deserve. Does that make sense? I mean, in life situations and in relationships and in friendships and things like that. And it's not only you're the universe, but your high self. I see all this light coming in for you. And while this light is coming in, I'm watching, it's almost cartoonish. I'm seeing, like, you know how it is like in Bugs Bunny, where they have a box of holes and you can put the hole down and it becomes a hole. It's like there's a hole that's like the dark thing until it's a dark little piece of something until you put it on the ground, then it becomes a hole. But I'm seeing that, like, you're holding on to this old, you call it the mass consciousness, and other energies of like that from your own experience that are really ready to be flushed. I want to use that word, flushed, gone. And part of you is afraid to let go of it.
Mhm.
And understandably so. It's one of those, it's similar to all of us. I would say it's similar to with Franny's trepidation about spoon bending. It's the same thing, that saying I borrowed from my friends, the same thing, only different. And you're ready for it. And I don't know what that means for you. I think as you start doing that more and more, your direction in your life and what you're, how do I say what you're doing? I don't know. They're not letting me see, because I think this is your decision. But what you're doing and how you're doing it might change again. It might even include a move.
Could that move be soon? My
Relatively, yeah.
just started talking about how he's got 3 people that want to buy this house now.
Yeah. It looks like it is going to be you've got a number of choices they don't want me to talk about, so I'm acknowledging that up front. I see them, and your high self and higher guidance specifically. It's for you it's for your choice. It's for you to choose. Each of them is going to have challenges and benefits to go with it. And part of that, do what you know until you know what to do, was from one of your guides for you. It's for everybody, but specifically for you. But I will also say that's one of the things I do in my own life. When things aren't precisely clear, well, I don't know how to do it. I haven't quite figured out how to do it the way they're trying to guide me into it. But in the meantime, I'm going to continue doing it. Use the approaches that I do know until I figure out what it is they're trying to show me. And sometimes it means doing practical things. Other times it means doing maybe some esoteric things. For you, I think it's going to be a combination of both. But this is one of the, how do I say it? What are the words? It's bigger than it looks, and yet at the same time, you just shift a little bit of an angle and it's nothing. It's one of those kind of challenges where if we look at it, if we look at the elephant, all we see is the elephant. But if we turn to the side, all we see, realize, oh, we can handle this. We can do this. And it's for you. That's the same thing of that letting go. So, and you're ready to do it. And with your connectedness to your high self and your spiritual, you have all this light shining in all from your higher self, your master guides, the divine, and a whole bunch of Saint, I think Augustine, right? There's a couple others coming in as well. I'm trying to want to talk about them yet because they don't want me to talk about them yet. but they're coming in for you. So you have the spiritual gifts and abilities to do it, but like all of us, challenges meet us at our points of learning and our Achilles heel. And that's kind of why it's a bit of a challenge for you. It's a bit of an Achilles heel for you.
It's probably one of my core issues, I would say.
I got a yes on that from your high self.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like this struggle, that's why I've been so focused on clearing out the ancestral stuff, because to me it feels like this is baggage from the ancestors that have been passed down that also I've played out in my other lives, or ancestry, whatever you want to call that. But it just all feels to me like it's all based around survival. And it's like I've been asking, to be in a place where I can thrive. Before I moved here, I was like, I want to live where I'm thriving and not in this continuous struggle and just getting by and, more problems, and I've lived like that my whole life since day one. It's been that way since I was born. So that it just feels like impossible. And it has become a habit because I've lived like that my whole entire life, this life anyways.
And in previous ones.
Yep.
And it's been used to, others have recognized this vulnerability in you and have used it against you in other lives. And you've had these skills and abilities, these spiritual skills and abilities in different ways in different lives, and they've recognized it. And I just use the word manipulated you and used you for that. And that's part of what, it's a pattern that you see parts of it, but like, the Johari's windows that I love to refer to all the time. This is when windows 3 and 4, the things that others see that we don't see, and things that neither we nor others see about ourselves. It's in those quadrants of your experience. And believe it or not, I want to address two things that as you were talking, they were talking, and so I don't want to lose it. Yes, the ancestral things, those energies that are brought down are in kind to your own experiences in the past. Yes, it resonates with it. So in clearing them, you're clearing the others. And you said you want to be in a place of thriving, and I know it looks like it's anything but that, but the universe has put you into the place where that can now be possible. And as we're talking right now, that's part of what they want you to know is it may not look like it, but it's you, not you consciously, you know what I mean. If there's part of you holding on to this because of the old patterns of habituations, because you got used, and they reinforce guilt and other mechanisms to keep you where they wanted you so they could continue using you. And you dutifully did it at the time, and I will say naively, because if we don't have the awareness, we just can't see things that we are not aware of. You didn't have the awareness in those lifetimes to see that although your intention was to be doing the good, and that was indeed your intention, they were masking it, or they were they clothed it in that light so that you thought that that's what you were doing when they were indeed using you for their own purposes as well. And you did a lot of good in that life, but unfortunately, because you just didn't have the awareness, you got used, and that has been sticking with you. And it's been a real sense of vulnerability for you for a long time. You find yourself in these situations and they become perplexing. What do I do? What do I do? And what they're trying to say, so what they're saying for you to do now, I would say, is just connect on faith, set your intentions to do that, and do your best to make that happen. And again, in the very practical sense, while you're learning that and becoming aware of that, do what you know until you know what to do. And it could be something as simple as you get a regular a temporary job, or you do side things or some other things that bring in some financial abundance for you, whatever it is you need to do, but on the practical sense. But you were brought out of the old situation that you were before and where you are now for the opportunity to let go of these patterns that have held you back so that you can springboard into abundance, into greater abundance, because there's other things obviously as we go along and learning, things come up, but this is something you have been waiting for lifetimes to let go of and trying to let go of. And now you're at a point where I honestly believe, and sort of your higher guidance, you're ready to let go of it. You're on the cusp of being able to do so. And I don't think I'm being overly optimistic, but I also recognize it's an enormous challenge for you, because for each of us, the challenge is it's easy for one person can be absolutely the blind spot for somebody else, So I mean that in the most heartfelt, loving way that I can be, is that you are a loving being, you're a loving person, you're this beautiful spirit, and you're ready to have more and to let go of this. But that part of you has to let go of it. And I guess that the only person that's going to be able to figure that out is your higher guidance, and guide you to it, and take one step at a time. I know I believe in not sugarcoating things, so I hope this has been helpful, but at the same time, I recognize what I can sense what it is for you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Very keenly, I can sense what it is for you.
That clarified, that helped to a little bit of what I was getting, because I felt like I've been walking through a dark tunnel. I can't see anything. I can sense it on a feeling level, but there's no knowing, there's just any glimpses of, I know what my experience is and I can go off of that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not seeing, the lifetimes or getting the knowingness of what it is. So this definitely helped to clarify that.
Yeah. And again, and one of your guides who just said that the reason you feel like you're in a dark tunnel, because, and I'm going to use my words, quadrant 3 and 4 of Johari's windows, because it's things you're just vaguely aware of. You have the awareness, but you don't have the same awareness as you do other things that you have challenges with, where we can understand them far more clearly, see them very clearly. Although we're still working on them, there's clarity. Whereas with this one, it's you don't, and because these energies are coming in to be released, and because you've had a focus on them, I say non-consciously, at least a very significant portion, but it brings those energies of being in a dark tunnel that make it so we can't see. It blurs the things, just like the muddy waters for Franny. It's the same thing for you, but it's the same thing, only different. But boy, wow! I'm going to tell you, when you let go of this, it is for you to let go of it. That's just so you know. In this lifetime, I don't know what unfoldment's going to happen for you. You're going to choose to do this, but it is for you to let go of this. And that is not only a gift for you, but when you let this go, it's going to let you be even a more enhanced channel than you have been already. And that's going to be a benefit to everyone around you. Everything you do and those that are around you are going to be so blessed when you do this. So as you're working on this, you're not only working on it for you, for your own growth and your own benefit, but it's going to be a blessing in your service to others. And that's a big part that the divine wants you to know, that you're not just doing this for yourself. You're doing this for everyone.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Bless you. Love and blessings from us.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Does anyone else have something? Thank you very much, Lisa, for sharing and being open. Because I think we're all are facing challenges, and although your challenges are different than others, whatever challenge each of us is facing seems as monumental to them as it does the one that we have to face for ourselves. So, does anyone else have anything before we close out? Paula, I see you have your friendly friend there. Pat, anything?
This has just been incredibly helpful, and to get to find our own hurdles that we are dealing with. It helps so much, because all of us on this call are already intimate spiritual beings in togetherness in a family. And so it's like, wow. I mean, I just want to cry because it's just, it's so unbelievable. So thank you. I got to hang up so I don't keep crying.
Well, crying is a good thing. Go ahead and let it happen. You can mute it while you're doing it, but it's a great thing. Don't hold that in. Just let it go. Yes, and one thing, June just chimed in, my old mentor, and she reminded me something that she used to say a lot to people, because people would come into these spiritual seminars and they would have some monumental things they're working on, like some of you are doing. And she'd say, the universe, our higher guidance, and basically our life plan was sculpted it is uniquely tailored to our strengths and minute vulnerabilities, and to every single little nuance of our being, so that when we have something, it knows our blind spots and it knows what these things, but it's not for negative reasons. It's to grow us. It's to help us. So as these things happen, even though they can feel and the experience can be incredibly challenging and just absolutely overwhelming, just know that we are moving forward. You're moving into the light. You are indeed growing. This process, although it can feel like we're in the dark tunnel, and that may be how we see it, the reality is, from the divine's point of view and the universe's and from our higher guidance's point of view, they're seeing us growing and blossoming. Although from our point of view, slowly than we would like it to be, more slowly, indeed, that is what is happening, and that I can tell you that's happening for all of you. So Pat, you reminded me that, and June she just left. So, but she wanted to know that. That's why when these things happen to us, the more obscure and the more weird a situation seems, and the more happenstance it seems, the more pre-planned it was. That's something that Schopenhauer talked about. Those who know who he was a big Joseph Campbell's a big fan of his. He talked about that, how incidental events in his life became main pivotal points of learning that were main cruxes of the very fabric of his life path. But at the time, they seemed anything but that. They just seemed like these unfortunate events and these unusual happenstances, I'm going to use that occurred in his life. But the reality is they're anything but that. And that's what June wanted. That was the point she was making. So that as we see these things happen, just know that the more obscure, I tell Deborah and I were talking about this, the more obscure, the more absolutely 1 in a billion chance that would ever happen to anyone. And how did it happen to me? That tells me that it was absolutely pre-planned, and that and not only is it pre-planned, it's pivotal for our growth. That happened in that way to bring it to our attention, that because it was a 1 in a billion chance, or how could I be in this situation when I've got all this learning and all these things? It's because we're to a point, we're on the cusp of this great learning, and this learning is going to propel us upward into being and blossoming into who we truly are, living in our divine light. So it doesn't seem like that at the time, but that is indeed what is going on right now. The light is shining upon all of us, even when it feels like it's raining and pouring. So,
Jeff, can you make a comment about what's happening with humanity right now? Like, to me, it feels like the birds are returning, the grass is growing, the earth is turning, spring is here. So it feels like the energy of renewal, the promise of good days to come, the promise of summer. And I know that I sequester myself, and I'm very happy where I live, and I try to keep a low profile, you might say. But I just wonder, is there anything you can say about where humanity is at this moment in time? Are we moving through some of the denser energies, or are we right in the thick of it, or what,
Okay, to answer your question, these are the times that they all talked about. Casey, June talked about way back in the 1980s. Dr. McKimmey, for those who knew him, he talked about these as well. we're in the thick of it. Part of our soul group is for us as we individually, and there's tons and tons of light workers this time to really anchor the light to help the entire soul group. So all of us and all of you are on the leading edge, and some of the things that are happening in your own life as you work through them are breaking through and setting the patterns for the soul group to collectively, although they won't consciously know it, but it allows those energies to permeate the soul group so they can break through and do this. That's why it's not just, these challenges just aren't our challenges. These are the challenges for the whole soul group. So part of what the soul group is these are the same people that were here in Atlantis when it pre-sank, a lot of the soul group. They were also part of the Roman Empire at the time of its rise and fall. And part of what the soul group is to do is we allowed, and I think I wrote this in one of the posts, as a soul group, we knew collectively, and I was one of them, I will let you know, that we were not doing what we were supposed to do, that we were off track. The Atlanteans were incredibly advanced, but they could be so insensitive. It's like a person who is so intelligent but has lost touch with their own compassion, kind of a thing. And they could be cruel, and I won't go into it here on the phone, but they were physically cruel. They could really do some pretty unthinkable things to their fellow Atlanteans. And they knew it. Many of them that were forewarned left. They went to South America. Many of them went to Egypt and other places on the planet. And then about 10,500 to 11,000 years ago, about whenever Atlantis sank. Anyway, and part of what we're to do this time as a soul group is the energies are coming in and they're to move up with the energies. And we've talked about this before, like that balloon. Part of what's happening is that what you're seeing out there in the world are people who don't have the spiritual groundings that each of you have, that other light workers have, and they're holding on to the old, and the old is being disconnected. So they're losing their psychological and emotional grounding points. And they're not willing to hook up. They're not willing to connect yet. That's that old metaphor that June used all the time that I've borrowed quite well, is the surfer surfing a wave. The energy's coming in. We're to connect with these and let go of these as best we can, and they'll happen in their own way. And each of us experiences stuff from time to time come up, and some of it falls away. But we let it go and we just flow with it. That's riding the crest of the wave, and will be placed on the beach. But what's happening with humanity is they're unwilling to do that. And they're like the person who's this big, huge 25-foot wave comes in. They're sitting there trying to hold on to the coral and the wave, the power of the wave, this energy's coming in. We're all moving up whether they are ready for it or not. And it just rolling them across the rocks. That's the metaphor she used, across the thing. And that's what you're seeing. That's the acting out. They've lost their grounding points. And a lot of people literally will act out recklessly. They will act out emotionally and irrationally. That's what you're seeing happening. But slowly, as the energies come in, these people too are being brought up. They're slowly connecting. They're just, what is it? They're leaving. They're digging in their heels and making it a rough ride for themselves. For those who we're going to get, and just may speak to it more generally speaking, those individuals within the soul group, they're going to be given a chance and chance and chance to move on. And if at some point, and it's part of their life plan, they knew it coming in, if they're just unwilling to do it, they'll leave. It'll be time for them to go in whatever way they've chosen. However, that isn't predestined for them. They can also choose to move up. And all the light workers and all the things that each of us does as we anchor this light and raise the frequency and are the beacon of light. As we walk out in the world, that light goes in and these people absorb it. It bypasses their mind. It bypasses their ego. And maybe they absorb a little bit of it, a little bit here, a little bit there, and slowly it moves them up and they're moving up too. But that's what you're seeing happening in the world. And part of the soul group's lesson, boy, I'm getting this, I'm supposed to mention this. And it was mentioned in the blog post. Part of what this soul group's lesson is to not allow us to follow the same patterns what happened in Atlantis. We are not to allow ourselves to continue doing the things that we know we are not to do, and to go in the directions we know are not to go. We're to let go of these and move into the new patterns, as people call it, the new dimension, the new earth. We're to anchor to these things and in whatever way it is for each of us to do that. And it's happening. But again, they're digging in their heels for some of them. Others who aren't, you're going to see them leave. You'll see a lot of that. Kay used to talk about, she says, lots and lots of people are going to be leaving over the next few years because they're not ready for these new energies. It's not for them to be it's not for them to be part of it, or they're unwilling to choose the life path segments that are available to them to move along with it. And therefore it comes to a point and they'll say, okay, you move on, do it the next time. So again, that's my long answer to your short question, but that's what's happening in the world. But our greatest gift is to remain centered in ourselves. Let our own stuff be released, because as we release those things and let the light into those areas of our being that the darkness used to be, we are also doing it for the soul group. We're setting those patterns. As we do, enough of us do it individually, it creates a collective pattern that it's like the person who's cutting a path through the jungle. We are collectively, the light workers are cutting the path through the jungle so others can follow it who don't know how to follow it. They don't know how to cut the path. That's what we're doing. We're being guided to do it. And that's why our ride is a little rougher too, sometimes. So that's what you're seeing out there. We are not to get caught up in that. You know, do as you're guided. It's not for me to say what others should do, but what I consistently get from the Divine Father is that we are to stay centered in our higher connection. We are to walk our path, speak our truth, do as we're guided, but not get caught up in the negative cycle stuff of the collective. That's what we're not to do, because if we do, we bring it into ourselves and then it manifests in our lives, especially with the kind of energies coming in for each of us. If we allow this stuff in, it can really manifest quickly. So but if we remain beacons of light, we're cutting the path for the rest of the soul group. And they're going to do it in their own time. Some people will make it. Some people will move on. Some people will leave, and others will persist until the time comes for them to either leave or change their patterns. But that's what you're seeing out there. And so I'd like to say we're in the thick of it, but at the same time, we've made it so far. We're kind of, I'd say, on the other side of the middle, on the 51% side of the curve, kind of a thing. But there's still some rough roads to go for the soul group. And as I keep showing me these different paths that we can take, there's still some decisions on the collective level that are being made. And I don't know what they're to do. All I know is that each of us, and I'm repeating myself, I know that, but as light workers, as we keep bringing it in and following our own light, as we anchor in more and more light, and as we let go of our own stuff, we're doing it not only for ourselves, but we're doing it for the group. And it truly is part of what we're here to do. That's why we're here. So that's all I have to say. That's, again, my long answer to your short question.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Yeah. Wow.
All right. Well, I guess we've gone a little long. It's been an hour and a half. Typically, I figured we target 45 minutes to an hour, but that's all right. This is good. Does anyone else have any of the closing thoughts, comments before we end this? And I will have this posted out within a day or so, or two.
All are one, all are one.
Thank you. Yes, all are one. Thank you, Marcy. Yes. Dan, Cathy?
We just want to say thank you, Jeff, and thank you, everybody. It's so fun to see all you guys and be connected. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you. And and all of you, thank you for being here, because it's when we come together is when our energies are multiplied and wonderful things happen when we're together that do not happen as much individually, not to the same extent. So thank all of you. Blessings and light. Until next time. And I will see any of you who are going to be part of the spoon bending tomorrow. I'll see you at 10 o'clock, Montana time.
Thank you all. Good night.
Good
Thank you.
night.
Love you guys. Love you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.